your Spartan race. And so, am I supposed to press continue?
Yes.
Anyway, the point is like, yeah, if you can get people together, start talking, discussing.
Absolutely.
It's so simple.
Okay, we're letting people in.
So I'll start at 7:01, right?
Yeah, but we're gonna let people in right now.
Okay.
We just sent out a reminder for the people who can't find the link, so we'll give us a minute.
I just want to say that I once met Amari, and he was sitting down, and he stood up. He's like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Like, oh, really tall drink of water. Is he still in Tel Aviv?
No, he's in New York.
Yeah, because he's coaching with the Nets.
The Nets.
Ah,
For those of you who are joining and listening in on this ongoing conversation, we actually are going it's always good to walk into a room in the middle of a conversation, right? We're going to start in about a minute. We're letting people in. There was some confusion with the link, but please keep speaking. Keep talking about Amare and any other sports people you want to talk about. Yeah, he is coaching for the Nets.
He's done a lot of great work. And he has wine. I'm promoting wine. I haven't tasted it.
Oh, here's a delicate.
Yes, we now announce people as they enter into the Zoom room.
We just watched Roman Holiday yesterday. So of course there's that moment of announcing who's coming in, and all the fancy people. Have you guys seen it? Roman Holiday? Audrey Hepburn. Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay, Laura, I think we're going to turn it over to Michael, who's already got a chat. And I don't know if Michael saw it in the chat.
Did.
We're already letting him know how they feel about,
Someone has already challenged my team jersey. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome.
How are you?
Welcome. If everyone could
call
stay
you
on
back
mute.
in about half an hour.
Okay. If everyone else could go on mute, that would be great. Because I hear. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Delicat. I'm the co-president of UJA-JCC Greenwich, and it's our pleasure to put on yet another one of our programs in our very important discussion of anti-Semitism. I've already gotten a couple of comments that I'm wearing the wrong team jersey tonight. I may be wearing the wrong player jersey since it's Aaron Rodgers' jersey and he may not be back this season. But in any event, I gave our guest speaker tonight, Zach, an opportunity to put on either a hat or his jersey, but he chose to go it just in his casual garb. To introduce Zach tonight will be Michael Newman. Michael is a psychotherapist who uses sports and exercise in his interventions. He's also the founder of a not-for-profit called Jewish Inspiration Foundation, which takes kids with physical challenges through obstacle-strewn Spartan races and other kinds of challenge courses. He's a popular host on a podcast called H.com called Jews in Sports. He also lives the life himself. He bested a pro athlete on CBS's $1 Million Mile, which is a reality sports show produced by LeBron James. Next up, he's set to compete on Israel Ninja Warrior in season 4. So tune into that. I don't know if Michael is going to the Olympics, but he could. We're delighted he's here tonight to interview and to introduce Zach Banner for all of us. I'm really looking forward to the program. So I will turn it over to you, Michael, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I have to first say, to the UJA-JCC Greenwich, you guys really wonderful, way of taking, anti-Semitism education with creativity and the programs that you guys are doing. Really impressed with, being able to educate in a more interactive way with these events and such. And so also thank you so much for, thank you so much for asking me to do this and inviting me. Let's get to Mr. Zach Banner, the legend himself. A little bit about Zach. football, high school, was two-time All-American offensive lineman, played for USC, two-time All-American there, just, being awesome in everything you do, drafted by the Colts, played for the Cleveland Browns later that year, and then, is on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And not only just being an amazing football player, you really, opened yourself to being, an activist and standing up for what's right. And so right from there, going right into it for the time. Also, caveat, anyone who wants to ask questions, please, we would love to hear from you. Put it in the chat, and I'll get to hopefully asking those questions. But so Zach, let's start right with, the Deshaun Jackson comments and a couple of different angles with that, which is obviously, regardless of what people think, it was insensitive, his comments, either naive or anti-Semitic. There's different arguments there. But at the end of the day, a blatant, hate, speech quoting, Hitler and all the, tropes that he used. And then what was more shocking also on that front is that really no one spoke out about it. And would love to hear your personal story with Judaism, how it came, how you came to the understanding that you have, and what really led you to speaking out at a critical time. And then obviously the impact it made, because it was, that meaningful, for you to do the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Mike, and shout out to the JCC for having me tonight. It's very humbling, and I feel very honored to be considered someone high enough to speak to such an awesome group. The whole situation that happened with Deshaun Jackson was very, very simple. It's another form of hate. It's a certain type of Black inclusivity that is taught and it's taught amongst the Black and brown community sometimes in very, very, very rare and small circumstances. In no shape or form, my parents, my mother, who taught me, no matter how well you do at sports at a very young age, it's always your character that people will remember you for. They won't have your stats on your gravestone, and it's about treating people with kindness and just it's just one word is empathy. And I didn't grow up Jewish. I didn't grow up around a Jewish community. I really didn't even understand what Judaism was, and really never even, what's unfortunate is that, I went to public school, an inner city school back on the West Coast, and, you learn about Anne Frank and that's it. And it's a very short story, very small percent, a very small story in such a large, event of the Holocaust. And educating myself since then, and not only in college where I was in a national Jewish fraternity. They approached me saying it was multicultural, but there's really only 3 Black guys in there. So we ended up finding out that was bullcrap at the end of the day, but it's okay because I wasn't even thinking about it like that. My first and really only form of experience anti-Semitism until later in life was when we were playing a pickup basketball game and somebody got mad at somebody on my team and used the word kike. And he was so flared up, and I didn't know what it meant. I never even said it or heard it. But when I found out, like I said, it's empathy. And, I'd be ready to beat some dude up on a court too if he would call me the N-word or something hateful. It sparks up a very, very touching history that's just naturally engraved in us and what we're born into. At some point in time, you have to realize that the 2018 shooting, the Tree of Life Synagogue, that same feeling of empathy and strong, just remorse for this world was the same feeling that I had in 2nd grade when I first read about the 4 little Black girls in the church being in Birmingham in the 60s being bombed by the Ku Klux Klan. Hate is hate. And so when we tried, first of all, you should never quote anybody like Hitler, ever, unless you're quoting evil. And to be honest with you, like I said, it's a very small percentage of the Black community that preaches this type of, we need to watch for ourselves, no one else will. But in doing that, you're stepping on the back of somebody else to lift yourself. And it was a very dark moment. In no shape or form am I giving Deshaun excuse. It's a very dark year in 2020 with George Floyd, post George Floyd, and everything going on in America. And we have this new voice in the NFL because of what's going on, and because we've spoken up, and because we're 80 to 90% Black and brown league, and so is a lot of American sports. But with that being said, there's a very, very small amount of Jewish players in the National Football League. And it's very, very hypocritical for us as Black men to ask for the help of everyone and empathy from everyone at the same time, and trying to, put down another group.
It's a very, very beautiful, statement in a sense of empathy. Empathy helps, for people to connect with each other. Getting to empathy is another situation. And when you surround yourself, as you said, a very small community in the African American Black community, you have, it just stays. So speaking out, you said the activism during George Floyd and all those things. What made you in that moment go against the grain of your community? That the activists were focused on, on that movement. And what was that feeling, in a sense that, hey, this is wrong? Yet, by the way, who knows what happens? It's the NFL. Career can be risked. Things can happen. And also, I'm curious what that is also like in the NFL about speaking out for what's right and how that's changed.
Yeah, I think it's just a common misunderstanding amongst some. And remember, I don't want to label my entire community, the Black community, because some of the most empathetic people in the world are Black people, especially we sit down and listen. Because when you have so many stories and such a rich history and such a horrible history, also as a group, and it's not so much about matching stories and seeing which is, what is worse than the other. It's like I said, it's an empathetic moment. So, but going back to that, it's once again, it's the simple fact of we have the largest spotlight on us in the NFL when it comes to sports. The biggest live broadcast in the world annually is the Super Bowl, and we have such a large audience. Amongst that audience are Blacks, whites, Jews, Asians. There's so many, Hispanics, so many. It's a worldwide organization. With that audience, we have a bunch of men, women, and kids who look up to us and what we do. When one of us messes up and offends somebody in that audience, it's up to us as workers of the NFL to stand up for not only what is right, but to continue to preach unity. Because I didn't even understand until, I had said what I said and stories were coming out. I didn't understand what it meant for anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic comments. I've educated myself most just from simple interactions like these, sitting down, with the ADL, sitting down and just meeting so many people from the Jewish community who not only say thanks to you, but also thanks to me, like you guys did, but also we want to keep this going because, at a lot of points in our history as Blacks and Jews, we have linked arms, we have stood side by side. And that unity itself is so much more powerful than just trying to put walls around each other, because the same, I urge people from the Jewish community, you as Jews, please continue to educate yourself on what is happening to my group and my community. One of the most empathetic moments that I've heard from a Jewish man was the rabbi at the JCC over in Shady Side. And he had said that, Zach, like when I take, as a fair-skinned white Jew, when I wear this yarmulke to show my pride and allegiance to my culture and religion, but when I take this off, I can hide my Judaism. You as a Black man cannot take off your skin. So there's different things and there's different forms of hate that we're fighting. And the same people who are running around saying all Jews must die and shooting up synagogues and ruining families are the same ones who don't even consider me as a human being, as a Black man. It's the same battle. And this conversation that you and I are having, and to continue to educate each other on not only our history, but our current events. A lot of this stuff, we could take that same hate that we're trying to spread amongst each other and we're trying to use against each other, and we could turn it into, hope and just marching forward side by side, arms linked.
It's very interesting. Division psychologically, systematically is on purpose. It's usually in game, whatever the system is, and Ron Mix is a Hall of Fame linebacker. And he's a Jewish guy. In 1963, he boycotted the All-Star game in New Orleans because the Black players weren't being treated right. And they got it switched, I don't know where. But he literally is in shock and said, I don't know what happened. He goes, it doesn't make sense. He goes, we were arms in arms. He goes, Jews and Blacks were fighting for the same. It was the same hate. Hate takes on many forms. By the way, Zach, I have in Uber I have it filmed also. Someone said, I knew you're Jewish by your big nose. It doesn't matter where you are. Hate will find you because there's a gain. And by the way, in my opinion also, hate is a form of bullying. And bullies look for people to feast on, and then they project their pain. So in fact, those bullies are actually in pain. And the best way to fight those is and when I go into schools, is to strengthen the environment around. Stop saying these things, stop saying it to others. And we have to educate, everyone has to educate themselves. In Pittsburgh, there's a very interesting question I do want to get to, but in Pittsburgh, we saw the pain. I would love to hear, what your reaction to that was, but then also we saw a very unique thing in that pain, everyone unifying. And I would love to know your thought on how we unify, what unifying is. It's breaking down boundaries that really are there to seemingly protect us, but they don't. What was that like at that time?
Yeah, it was, like I said, not only an empathetic moment for myself, but for the entire team. Squirrel Hill is a very, very large part of the Pittsburgh city, not only the city, but the community. And to learn what kind of community work the synagogue does itself, the JCC does itself, it's not only helping with education and gaining resources to help education throughout the city. People got, you have to remember that there's Black Jews as well. There's Black and brown Jews as well. And the amount of tears, but also how we supported that, not only by honoring them with, before the game, honoring the situation, the event, but also continuing that support, donating money towards that community, to the synagogue, doing things that we can using our platform to elevate somebody. And it's also a really, really dramatic moment when somebody like us with this platform cries out to the rest, not only to support Jews, but to continue to support against hate. Those same people, like I said before, those same organizations, same groups, it's all the same thing. And whether it comes down to gentrification or the lack of education within the inner city or certain areas and certain communities, sometimes you can literally color a map of any city in the color of the demographic that lives there. And that's not held there and continued for no reason. There's a lot of systemic racism and a lot of systemic hate that not only combines against Blacks and Browns, but also Jews in itself.
I love when people try to say my suffering is worse than your suffering. Who the hell cares?
Right.
both people are suffering, everyone's suffering in a way, and to recognize that and say, okay, you're suffering and I'm suffering. Well, how can we give each other a hug, even though we might not agree on certain things, is a basis of a lot of these things. It's a great question. Have players either been upset with your support for Jewish community or been supportive of your comments? Because locker room talk, is a very interesting thing, and it spreads. And I heard an expert of hate say, when you're at the poker table and someone says something racist, and one of the dudes don't say anything about it, that's how it spreads. So what was the kind of reaction in the NFL, if any?
There's so many powerful Jewish men and women in organizations, presidents, GMs, owners. It was nothing but love from them, but also from, just from players around the locker room. It was just another, hey man, good job for doing what was right. Like I said, and it's very, very small. It's a very, very small percent of people who preach hate. Sometimes guys were like, hey, make sure you're spending that same time, that same energy towards, Black Lives Matter and things that we're trying to, talk about. I said, yeah, man, but at the same time, it's a form of unity. It's just showing unity, and that kind of just hushed up. But that's not the larger part. There's really nothing but praise most of the thing, and just like I said, when one person, it's the same thing with, if there's someone who's a racist Jewish person, he has no affiliation with you, Michael. Just because you guys are Jewish doesn't mean you guys have the same heart. You know what I mean? There are people out there amongst all groups who teach hate and inclusion, and that's the hardest part to get by is standing up towards somebody that's supposed to be a part of yours and educating them. You know what I mean? And giving them a chance to learn from the situation and grow, because that's the only way that we'll be able to fight racism, hate, and anti-Semitism.
It's very interesting because, social media has given a platform in a very unique way for that group to create chaos. And, when you say educate, a lot of times, and as I have been taught in debates and in activism work and things, you're not debating that person. And by the way, this is a form of bullying. And if we all know bullying, bullies just want you to react. They don't care if you beat them or not. They get the satisfaction because they are in pain. And to recognize that this small group is doing that and not let ourselves get affected by that person projecting hate onto me wants me to feel bad about myself. And my job in the community against social media is to not let that get to us. And that's in the communities what all communities need to do when hate is faced toward them, is stand up together and feel strong and say, this isn't true. It's beautiful. It's a good point, Zach, in the sense of we can't give power to the small group that, drowns out everyone's voice. Okay, so please give questions. We have a couple questions. One is, has anyone invited to Israel? And then also to speak about your wonderful foundation and you inspire, but then you actually do change. So that's really wonderful, and would love to hear about it.
Yeah, I've been invited to, I think, hundreds and thousands of Shabbat dinners. I haven't been to one yet because of COVID. Definitely have tried challah and matzah ball soup and gotten to break bread with some amazing Jewish people here in Pittsburgh. And I have been invited to Israel. It is on my to-do list, especially postseason this year. But just like I said, it feels really good because we've built alliances, raised so much money for my organization to where, first of all, my organization it's literally it's a perfect match for this situation. It's bringing together, building together, better together. B3 Foundation, b3foundation.org. And I created B3 my senior year at SC in hopes of helping. I feel like if we all used our platforms, whatever the scale is, to draw these areas of these maps that we take ownership and pride over, and target things like education, and resources, not only for, through the pandemic as well. My organization, we gave my neighborhood, mask, COVID supplies, backpacks filled with school supplies. We continue to do that annually. Another thing that we just did, we just gave out to an amazing first generation Muslim immigrant who's been homeless, Denise. She's been homeless her entire life with her mother. I named a scholarship to help inner city youth and in the education. I named it after both of my parents, Ron and Vanessa Banner Scholarship Fund. It's $40,000, $10,000 a year for a 4-year commitment. We just paid for her to go to the University of Oregon. And these are amazing things that Jewish people like yourselves can contribute to my community. It's not just about what we can do for each other. Like I said, I've donated to the Squirrel Hill area. Money to me is not as important as time. I plan on spending a lot of time, not only in Jewish communities, but throughout Pittsburgh. Those zones in my map that I've drawn out is Tacoma, Washington, where I grew up, the island of Guam, where my mom is from, and the city of Los Angeles, and specifically South Central Los Angeles, where I went to USC. I take a big pride over those 4 communities. I've been affected by them just as much as I affect them. And, whether it's time and it's money, I just beg that not only you do it and continue to do it for the Jewish community, but also for mine as well. Educate yourself on what's going on in our country, not only in the education system, but just living spaces, inner city hoods, inner city buildings, real estate, not only that, but just obviously police brutality. There's no reason why somebody like myself, who I humbly identify myself as a professional athlete, and as much money as I make, I still, have this fear deep down in my core when I get pulled over for speeding, and we're talking about 10 over, 15 over. And sometimes we drift in our mind. How many times have you been able to, talk to a cop without, thinking about fearing for your life? That is something that is taught amongst my community, is that police are the enemy. When I understand that not all cops are bad. I've had relationships with police officers. I have an uncle who's a SWAT member out in LA, and I understand how dangerous it could be, but also not all cops are as good as him. There's so many things.
You speak, if we have a little bit more time, because I really do want to, this is very important for everyone involved. As my system, I've read, Mein Kampf, and I've read the Ford articles, and Christopher Hitchens, I understand systems, and basically there's no, when we talk about hate and blame or whatever, when you say education, it's not that you are wrong, it's that you are in a system and a bubble that, for whatever the reason, information gets spread around. And when you're saying education, it's just saying, hey, that's not probably the way of thinking, just because everyone in that little bubble thinks that way, as you were saying, to subsets of your community. By the way, I'll raise my hand and say, of course, no one's perfect. The Jewish community is not perfect. The Black community is not perfect. No community is not perfect, but it's what you put out. And what I've seen in systems is, if you can get kids particularly, and that's why I applaud you, to talk with each other, play sports with each other, where talk is gone and you could just have an experience. I feel education is experiences with someone else who might not be in your system. And so with that, I would like to ask you a very tough question. And obviously we would, of course, need more time to delve into the particulars about it. But because of, it is what it is, BLM, and what that means to you. What can I learn from that as far as fighting hate? And then also, if you have any information as far as, little things, there's a question people want to ask about your career as well after. But, as far as on that standpoint, not that there is a negative toward maybe possibly Israel or Jews or the foundation alone. And by the way, an organization is an organization. There's only so much that it can do, but then maybe more particularly the people that are in it and what they're trying to do. And I would love to have that information as, it's a wonderful opportunity for myself and everyone here.
Yeah, I continue to blast out things that not only myself or continue to do, but my team, the B3 Foundation, does. But BLM it's as complex as systemic racism and certain things that are holding us back as a people. But also it's the simple fact of my life does matter, and that there's not enough empathy towards that, or else these certain things wouldn't keep happening. I think that how you continue to educate yourself is continue to just listen and show up to things and support things. And the most powerful thing, not only Jewish people, but white-skinned Jews, just whites in general, the most special thing that you can do is continue to display your empathy and your support. That's very broad, but it's also very simple. And we understand just as much as you understand somebody who's empathetic towards, fighting anti-Semitism and fighting hate. You can feel that just as much as I am. Like I said, I continue to put these things on my social media, ZBNFL on Twitter and Instagram. And I also, b3foundation.org is the website for my foundation. This is an uphill battle, but it also levels out, like I said, when we lock in arms. So if anybody ever has anything, I would love to support that, and I would ask you to do the same.
Well, anytime you want me at a rally or whatnot, I'm there. I went to a community for the Black community in Broward, a council meeting, and I had someone, give me a hug, and I was 18, and it was a very powerful moment of just, if you just show up, I think a lot of times talk is cheap. Right. And I think social media, we all do these things. We think, oh, yours wasn't talk. Your video was emotion. We felt it. People felt it. But I think you're correct. I think showing up, educating yourself through experiences, having a conversation like this where, I get to hear from you, really just hammer home empathy. You cop, drives by, gut drops. Whatever the reason, that's your experience, and I can accept that and say, holy crap, that sucks. The same way people draw swastikas, and my stomach, people's stomach drops. It's I'm not demeaning to say it's the same pain, but what I'm saying is to break that division down where it's not, it's always in marital therapy. It's always like, oh, my pain's worse than yours. You guys have to come together now in the marriage and figure out how to move forward and be able to accept those things that trigger us or whatever. And it's a very important phrase. Empathy is key to most things. I feel that, the experiences, education also, but being able to play a game with others from a different background, is important. What do you plan to do after your NFL career?
I plan on going into broadcast journalism. That's what I studied at USC. Not only sports broadcast, but just, I idolize people like Michael Strahan. Maybe we'll do Zach and Kelly in 20 years, huh?
I like it. Why not? Although you don't have the gap.
No, I don't. I definitely have a better smile.
Okay, I think that's a good place, to leave it. I greatly appreciate, also, again, any hard conversations are always good to have. I wanted to ask the question because, I've had many experiences where I'm just like, wait, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna throw it over to Michael. Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you, Michael, for your insightful interview and your comments. And Zach, we really appreciate you being here tonight and sharing your experiences with us and helping us on this journey to try to end hatred because of differences in people. The work your foundation doing sounds amazing. I think you mentioned, if anybody wants to support that, it's b3foundation.org. Visit that website and you can do it. Or if anyone on this call wants to make a directed gift through us, we will pass it all on to Zach, to UJA-JCC. And on behalf of the entire Jewish community and the entire community of Greenwich, we thank both of you for your time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight, and we look forward to continuing our discussion on this important topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Huck.